Sitting behind me right now, I've got 3 machines that are all multicolor Core XY 3D printers. And we're gonna put them to the test side by side and see how the quality differs, how the time differs, and what the overall results look like between using 3 different machines from 3 different manufacturers. So we've got the AD5X from Flashforge, the Anycubic Kobra S1 combo, and the Bambu Lab P1P. And we're gonna test a few things. How quick does it perform the multicolor color changes? What do the quality results look like between each of the machines? And are there any issues that we run into during the print process? So we're gonna do 2 different tests today. One is a single color print, and then we're gonna jump into a multicolor print with 2 spools and see what the differences look like. What I'm really looking for with the single color print is how fast does each machine start, how fast does each machine finish, and what does the overall quality results look like? And as far as the multicolor prints go, I wanna see basically the same thing with the addition of the color swap times, because each of these machines does go through a little bit of a different process when it's swapping the filament, and one of them, from my experience, is a little bit slower, so I wanna see if overall that slows down our total print time. So let's jump into the computer, see which models we're gonna print out, and then we'll get them sent off to the machines and get these guys started. So for our first print, we're doing something super simple. It's a sunglass holder for your visor in your car. So I've got the same print loaded into Anycubic Slicer next, Orca Flashforge, and Orca Slicer for the respective printers. Now, the only difference between these machines right now is the Bambu P1P is using the Cryo Grip plate. So we have textured cool plate for that setting. Aside from that, I've got the same quality settings between each of the slicers, a 0.2mm layer height with a 0.2mm first layer. We're using 3 walls, 4 top and bottom layers, and 15% adaptive cubic infill with each of the prints. There's no brim turned on for this. We're using the same type of filament, and this should be a pretty straightforward test. According to the slicers anyway, it looks like the AD5X is scheduled to come in right around 11 minutes and 55 seconds. One thing the AD5X doesn't include though is the preparation time, which all of these machines do have. We're gonna run bed leveling on each of them, so that will add a little bit of time. With the Anycubic S1 combo, we're looking at a total print time of 19 minutes and 59 seconds. If we pop on over to the P1P, we're looking at a print time of 16 minutes and 41 seconds. So I'm gonna send all of these over to the printer first, and then I can press start when we get to the printer. Okay, so I've got each of the files sent off to the machines. I've pulled off the Panda Touch from the P1P so I can get closer to these machines when I go to press print. And I'm gonna try to start them at basically the exact same time. We've got the colors selected, I've got auto bed leveling turned on. That should be about as much as we need to do to get these things printing. So without further ado, I'm gonna press start and we're gonna see which one finishes first. So I did start this stopwatch a little bit late. None of them have actually really started going, but we are gonna see which one of these finishes first. And because I'm definitely gonna speed up this process with the time lapse, this is gonna help us maintain time. All right, all 3 have finished up, and honestly, even though the P1P started first, followed by the S1 combo, and then the AD5X, they all finished up right around the same exact time, which I guess is a good thing. I'm gonna get them all off the build plate, and then we can take a look at each of the results. So starting off with the print from the AD5X, solid looking print. There's no real artifacts or layer lines that I can see on this. It is generally speaking a really, really nice looking print. Moving on to our print from the Anycubic S1 combo. This one also looks really nice. It seems like there might be a few retraction settings that need to be played around with. It is also possible that the filament was slightly wet. Something that is noticeable on the Anycubic is more pronounced layer lines, and more specifically right down here in the center area, there is a pretty pronounced layer line that goes all the way around this part. But again, overall, it's a really clean looking print. And then finally, moving on to our print from the Bambu Lab P1P. I would say arguably this one does look the best with the fewest amount of layer lines or artifacts going up the side of it. Pretty comparable to the one that came off of the AD5X. So generally speaking, they all started off with a little bit of a time difference between the two of them, with the P1P starting the print first, followed by the Anycubic S1 combo, and then the AD5X coming in third as far as the start of the print time. But they all finished the print right around the same time, and they all have pretty much the same quality, albeit the S1 combo, we did see that little bit of shifting or artifacts as it built up the print. Okay, and for our next test, I've loaded up this Flexi Orca. I've scaled it down to 80%, so it doesn't take super long, but it is scaled to 80% in each of the slicers, and we are running with the same exact quality settings and strength settings across all three that we did on our first test. One of the other changes I've also made is to make sure that our flushing volumes amongst all of the printers are the exact same thing. So from gray to black, we have 110 millimeters cubed, and from black to gray, we have 150. And again, that is the exact same number across all of the slicers for each of the machines. So we're going to get these sent on over, and we're going to start it in the exact same way we did it last time. So I've got the Panda Touch again for the P1P out of the slot, so I can press start right around the same time. I've got our materials selected on the AD5X. I've got our print profile pulled up on the Anycubic S1, and we are going to hit print on all of these at the same time. Close to the same. That one didn't go quite as planned, but it's a matter of a couple seconds. If they all finish up right around the same time again, I'm okay with that. I don't know if you saw what just happened there. That was kind of my fault, so I am gonna give this a 10-minute head start, or a 10-minute deduction in time, because it started to load nylon through for whatever reason. Even though I had slots 1 and 4 selected, for whatever reason, it decided it wanted to pull slot 2, which was loaded with nylon, which obviously won't work at 215 degrees Celsius. So I've gone ahead and canceled it, pulled out the nylon, restarted the print, and we're just gonna deduct 10 minutes off of the print time for the S1 combo. The P1P though, is already on its first filament change and its third layer. So we're just getting started on the AD5X, and this thing is already 3 layers in. We'll see how they end up when everything is all said and done. Really quick here, just got a notification on the Anycubic that filament is broken, and it does appear that the filament is broken. So I'm gonna feed the filament back into the machine and see if that's just an anomaly, or if over time it's gonna continue to do this. It's actually just going to print its first layer in black now, so hopefully this doesn't happen every time. So just got another notification that retraction was abnormal. Not really sure what's going on here, but I'm not going to stop these other 2 printers. This is the purpose of this test, is to see how they hold up over time. Especially since this is a multicolor machine, I shouldn't have to sit here and babysit it the whole time. We keep getting a retraction abnormal. Check the status of the filament and try again. I guess I'm gonna pull the PTFE tubes off the backside of this machine and see if there's a piece of broken off filament in there or something. Because yeah, it's only completed the first 2 layers of the printing, and it couldn't even swap over to the black the first time. I expect more of you. So it does appear there was a piece of broken off filament leading from Ace Pro slot 1 into the unit itself. So just by removing the PTFE tube in the back, I was able to get this thing removed. Hopefully that solves the issue. We'll go ahead and hit resume. Should be able to load the filament in now and shouldn't have any issues continuing on with this print. Hopefully. All right, that looks like it fixed the issue. We are now printing our first layer of black with the S1 combo. Only 5.4% complete though, 4 out of 134 layers, whereas the P1P is at 27% complete at 14 out of 134 layers, and AD5X is right around 18% complete. All right, so P1P is finished up. That finished up 15, 20, 25 minutes ago. AD5X just finished up now, a little over 2 hours and 52 minutes. So a little bit slower than what the time on the slicer said, but that's not what we're really testing here. I want to see real world results. The Anycubic S1 combo had about a 10-minute delay from the start when it was trying to print nylon, so I pulled the nylon and the other filament out, and we restarted the print. So I am knocking 10 minutes off the total print time for this, because that may have been my fault. However, the filament breaking off is staying in simply because that's what the machine did when it was given a task. I'm not going to take time off or restart anything just because filament broke off. I had to fix it. This is a side-by-side test, so it's delayed because of what it did. This machine does show about 38 minutes remaining for it to finish printing, and if you remember correctly, in the slicer, it was about 40 minutes or so longer than both of these other machines, so it's not like we weren't expecting this one to finish last, even without any of the mess-ups that it had. So, gonna let this one finish, and then we're gonna take the prints off of each of the machines, take a look at them, and see how they look. I will say, the screen on the AD5X does show a print time of 2 hours and 42 minutes, so it took about 8 to 10 minutes for the initial startup cycle. Just thought I'd throw that in here, mainly so I don't forget. So I can't say I'm super surprised at the times that these things finished up in, because we already kind of knew this going into it when we saw the times in the slicer. That was no surprise to me at all. What I really am interested in though is how did each of the prints turn out? All right, and first up on the list is print off of the P1P. Peels off of the plate just as you would expect. All the parts function, move around just as they should. And there is some minor stringing, possibly due to retraction issues. Could be from wet filament, but overall the quality on this looks just as you would expect from the P1P. I've got no complaints about this print whatsoever. If we take a look at our print from the AD5X, it flexes right off of the build plate. You can see all of our little print in place hinges there. Overall, the quality on it looks really good. There's no artifacts or any sort of issues that I see right off the bat. This was printed at a 0.20 layer height, so any of the layer lines that we see is simply because of the layer height that it was printed at. But yeah, I'm really happy with the results of this 2 hours and 42 minutes later. And taking a look at the results from the Anycubic S1, again, came off the build plates, fully functioning. All of the parts move around. Print quality looks pretty good. There is a little bit of stringing inside of here. Could be from filament being a little bit wet. Also could be some retraction settings that aren't 100% dialed in for this machine yet. But if I was to put this side by side with the results from the P1P or the AD5X, I'm not sure that I would even be able to tell which machine printed which. It is funny that we're printing in Orca, because all of these machines use a fork of Orca. Yeah, really good, really clean print overall. Definitely the longest print. The slicer information, at least what's on the screen here, is showing 2 hours and 58 minutes was the total print time. So about 16 minutes slower than the AD5X. And if we're gonna put all three of them side by side, on the left side here, we have our print from the AD5X. In the middle, obviously, is our print from the Anycubic Kobra S1. And then on the far right here is our print from the P1P. Just as an initial first look at these all side by side, if I was to mix up the prints from the P1P and the Anycubic S1, I would not be able to tell which one of these was printed on which machine. They both look exactly the same to me. And honestly, aside from those minor stringing issues, I don't think I'd be able to tell these apart at all at this point. They all look basically the exact same to me. So I have a ranking system in place, at least in my head. For instance, which printer finished first? I have to give that to the Bambu Lab P1P, so 5 stars to the Bambu for finishing first. In second place, we have the AD5X. I'm gonna give that 4 stars. And then in third place is the Anycubic Kobra S1. That'll get 3 stars in terms of the speed that it took to finish. Now, as far as the time that it took for each machine to swap filament, again, I'm gonna rank them on a scale of 1 to 5, with the Bambu Lab P1P coming in first. This one swaps over filament about 1.5 minutes, minute and 20 seconds, give or take, depending on what it's swapping from and to. But for the purposes of this test, it's obviously the clear winner, 5 stars. Coming in second, I'm gonna have to give it to the AD5X. The AD5X, the way it loads and unloads filament from the IFS system, is just slightly quicker than what I'm seeing on the Anycubic S1. Not by much, but one of the downsides that I'm seeing so far with the Ace Pro system is the way that it unravels the filament. It does seem that it takes slightly longer for the Ace Pro to retract the filament. And when it's unraveling or rolling the spool back up, it seems the rates don't quite match. So you end up with something like this, where the filament is retracting faster than the rollers are rolling back. And I will say it does impact the speed at which the Ace Pro unit and the Anycubic S1 swap filaments over. So it'll get 3 stars from me for that one. And then last on the list is print quality. Like I mentioned before, all of them look phenomenal. In fact, I can't tell which one of these was printed on which machine. So they all get 5 stars for that. So obviously that would put the Bambu Lab P1P in spot number 1. But I do want to talk about pricing. The Bambu Lab P1P at a normal pricing is $549 at the time of this video. And that is just for the machine itself. That doesn't include the AMS unit. Now, aside from the Sunlu 3D printing mate that's on top of here, the AMS system from Bambu Lab is $319 at the time of this video. So if we add that to the price of the P1P, you have $549 plus the $319 for the AMS, which brings our total cost for the P1P setup to $868 out of the box. Now the P1P is the largest printer in the lineup with a 256mm build plate, so it is slightly larger than both the other machines here, so that is something we'll take into account. The Anycubic Kobra S1 comes in at $549 for everything you're seeing here. So $549 for the P1P standalone and $549 for the Anycubic Kobra S1. This machine also includes a door that I took off for the purposes of filming, but it is the only fully enclosed machine in this lineup, so you do have the ability to print materials like ABS, ASA, nylons, and you don't have to worry about any of the fumes coming out or draft from the air causing issues with the print. So that is a plus with this machine, and the price point at $549 is hard to beat. And what's a plus about this is you can also add another one of the Ace Pro systems, bringing it to 8 colors total, if you choose to. The Anycubic Kobra S1 has a 250mm build plate, so slightly smaller than that of the P1P, and slightly larger than that of the AD5X. And speaking of the AD5X, this machine comes in at $399 at the time of this recording, but if you buy it through their website, you do get a $30 off coupon, bringing that price down to $369 out of the box for a 4-color multicolor printer. It does have a slightly smaller 220mm build plate, so if the things you're printing are larger than 220mm, this one might be out of the question for you. So as far as ranking them based off of the price for what you get, I'm gonna have to give the AD5X 5 stars. There's no beating $369, even $399 for a machine like this. It performs flawlessly. I haven't had any issues with it so far. So yeah, 5 stars for the AD5X. The Anycubic Kobra S1, aside from filament breaking off in the back there, which is obviously not gonna happen every single time you go to print, so I'm not really gonna take that into account. I'm leaving it in the video so you can see that it happened, but I haven't had any issues with it so far, and I've printed quite a few things on this machine since I got it in. So as far as price point for this machine, $549 with a 250mm build plate, I'm gonna have to give this one 2nd place and 4 stars. And then the P1P. This machine comes without this fancy touchscreen, and you're pretty much left with this late 90s, early 2000 control panel on the front here, which wouldn't have allowed me to do very much when it came to starting these prints. This is an additional add-on, so I'm not really taking this into account when I give the P1P its ranking. Obviously, print's great, fastest printer, fastest swap times, but it is the most expensive by a long shot. You could buy 2 of the AD5Xs for the same price as 1 of the P1Ps with the AMS system. And along that same note, you could buy the Anycubic S1 with 2 Ace Pros for the same price as what you're seeing here. So that's just something to take into account as well. If you need more than 4 colors, maybe go with this machine, as long as you're okay with taking a little bit longer time to print. 256mm build plate, but we're coming in at $868 for the total cost, 3 stars. So after everything is all said and done, where does that leave us for the final ranking? Well, with the P1P, we've got 5 points for quality, 5 points for coming in first, and 5 points for it being the quickest to swap over the filament. So that brings us to a total of 15 points. But if you remember right, this one came in 3rd because of its price. So that leaves us with a total of 18 points for the P1P. With the Anycubic S1 combo, we've got slightly lower score, 3 points for speed, 3 points for the filament changeover, and 5 points for quality. So that'll leave us with 11. but it also got number 2 in terms of price, which brings our score on the Anycubic up to 15. And then on the AD5X, we've got 4 points for speed, 4 points for changeover, 5 points for quality, which brings us to 13 points, and then it also gets 5 points for being the most cost-effective, 18 points. So that leaves us with a tie between the AD5X and the P1P. In my personal opinion, if they're a tie and you don't need the extra build plate, go with the AD5X. If you do need that slightly larger 256mm build plate size, you will have to go with the P1P. With that said, the Anycubic S1 combo is still a great machine. These points are merely based off of how I had to rate them because there's 3 machines here. Not every single one of them can get 4 or 5 points. This one came in last in terms of how long it took to change over the filament, and it also came in last in terms of the print time. But it still got 5 stars because they all look perfect. None of them have any defects that I would deem bad about any of these machines. If you want a good quality machine, all 3 of these behind me are gonna do the trick. And honestly, for the price between the P1P and the S1 combo, it's a slightly smaller 250mm build plate versus the P1P's 256mm. But the fact that you get 4 colors out of the box for $549, and it's an enclosed machine. I will say the only thing about the S1 combo, aside from it being a little bit slower, is replacement parts. As of right now, the recording of this video in July of 2025, you cannot get anything other than a brand new brass nozzle for this. I'm sure there are other parts on their website that are also compatible with this, but you cannot get a stainless steel or a hardened steel nozzle or extruder for the S1 machine as of the time of this video. With that said, the AD5X is also a new machine, so parts may be sparse for that, whereas the P1P, you can pretty much go onto Bamboo's website at any time and get any spare part that you need within a couple days. So those are all things to take into account. If I was gonna start a print farm with multicolor printers right now, the AD5X really is hard to beat. With that said, I do really enjoy the S1 from Anycubic, simply because it's got the door that closes up, which is off right now for the purpose of recording, but its ability to print things like nylon, ABS, ASA, super helpful. And the ACE system here is also a filament dryer. So you can continuously dry your filament while you're printing, which is pretty big for things like nylon. Downside to the AD5X, again, slightly smaller build plate, and all of your filament is out in the open, unless you choose to feed it from a filament dryer or something like that. And you are limited to 4 colors. There is no addition for any more colors on this machine. With all that said, I think all 3 of these machines behind me are great machines depending on your usage. If you want a fully enclosed machine that's capable of doing multicolor printing with a 250mm build plate, it's hard to beat the Anycubic S1 at $549. If you want the reliability, dependability, and the build plates of the P1P, go with the P1P. It's kind of hard to beat it. We know it holds up over time too, so that is another plus for the P1P, I suppose. If you want a budget-friendly 3D printer that does multicolor printing and just works right out of the box, AD5X. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you agree with my ranking of the machines? Do you disagree? Why do you disagree? What would you have given each of the printers? And which one would you go with if you were just getting started or adding another printer to your lineup? If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I will see you folks in the next video. Thanks so much for watching, and you take care.